your way. Indy Style.
Good Monday morning. Today on Indy Style, we are taking a trip to the Caribbean, or is it Caribbean? Chef Amy from A Cut Above Catering has a sweet Jamaican dish you can make yourself just in time for dessert tonight. Plus, just in time for Father's Day, Carly, the mom from Capital M, has some options on what to get Dad. And I'll talk with a nutrition mythbuster about what you should and should not be eating to get your healthy eating back on track. One way that you could do some healthy eating, or at least inspire yourself to do some healthy eating, is to go to our Facebook page and give us a like and share it with the vegetable lovers in your life, because today's Facebook question is simply, do you like peas? And Alan Haw, one of our audio engineers here at Wish, came in and dropped just Randy Alice level puns on me. He was like, you know, imagine world peace and give peas a chance. So we're getting those out of the way. But just answer the question. Share it with some people that you like. For the most part, it's leaning more towards people liking peas. People are even offering up how they like peas. I heard in vinegar, I don't know, thankfully Brenna during daybreak said she thinks that was a comment toward, yes, right there. Susan, peas with vinegar, only way to eat them. Always eat them that way, always will. Brenna was speculating that maybe it was pickled peas. Anyway, Judy says sugar snaps are one of my favorite snacks dipped in ranch dressing. Hot in casseroles and cold in salads are great too. I like them all. And Valerie, I've never liked peas. My mom said that when I was a baby that I would spit them out every time she'd try feeding them to me. So we'll check in with Amber a little bit later to get her take on peas, see if she has any difficulty with her children eating vegetables, maybe share some stories. Go to our Facebook page, please share some stories with us. A lot of us have not been eating all that well during the pandemic and stay-at-home orders. Health expert, nutrition mythbuster Johnny Bowden has some passionate advice. The nutrition mythbuster, Johnny Bowden, joins us. Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I've been better. It's nothing like some civil unrest and a global pandemic for someone that's a stress eater like me. And a lot of us are going through stuff like this. We filled our pantries and we filled our refrigerators, and now there's no more room in our pants. What's some of the stuff?
That's kind of the problem, because the stuff that we filled it with, which is the non-perishable goods, are exactly what's making us sick, fat, tired, and depressed. And this is really an opportunity for us to reevaluate our relationship with food. It's very interesting that of the 6 or 8 major pre-existing conditions that make a coronavirus outcome most bad, they are all diseases, metabolic diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. They're all circulatory diseases that are affected deeply by the food that we eat. And the processed foods, I'm sorry to say, the cereals, the breads, the pastas, all of the stuff that comes in boxes, this is exactly what is turning our metabolism into a pre-diabetic one. And you can just see it by looking, at the crowds in Disneyland. People are overweight. There's an epidemic of it. It's not an accident. We need to go back to real foods. And these are foods, when I say real foods, I mean, if you showed them to your great-great-grandmother, she'd say, oh, I know what to do with that. You show most of the foods in the supermarket, packaged whatever they are, I want to mention names, to someone, for example, in the blue zones, and they literally don't know what it is. We need to go back to food that spoils. Real food with real fat, and stop with the processed foods. It's killing us.
Well, those were the shelf spaces that were emptying first, and all the makings, like all the processed soups, gone. All the natural makings for soup was right there. We don't quite know how to do that anymore, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because in my grocery stores right here in Southern California, that's the first thing that you had, the empty shelves that looked like Poland during the Soviet occupation. But guess what wasn't sold out? The meats and the vegetables and the fruits and all of that stuff. And I actually used it as a time to reconnect with what eating for fuel really means. And by just having these kinds of things in my house, I've been just fine with my weight and with my energy and all of that. And a big part of that is we have to get over this fear of fat. I was in a movie recently, please let me make the plug. It's called Fat Fiction, and it's on Amazon, and I beg you all, I don't make any financial profit for it. None of us do. It is a message you need to hear. We were lied to about saturated fat. It's not a conspiracy. It wasn't like everybody, got together and tried to, but there was a scientific consensus that turned out to be wrong. It's happened before. It's happened before many, many times. And the fact is, saturated fat when it comes from healthy sources, like, for example, I have Malaysian palm oil up here for a reason. But when it comes from healthy sources like grass-fed butter or eggs or avocados, these are great fats for us. And we need them, and we've displaced them with processed foods, sugars, and starches. And I'd love to tell you more about why I'm so hot on the subject of fat and why it's so important.
Go ahead, please.
Well, you know, there are things in fat. First of all, it's the greatest source of energy on the planet. People worry about eating every 2 hours. If you're using your fat on your body, you can store 7 gazillion calories of fat. You can only store so many calories of carbohydrates. That's why people have to snack all the time. You eat more fat, you have more energy. It's that simple. That's number one. Number two, things like omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. We have an inflammatory epidemic in this country. Every one of the diseases I mentioned are inflammatory diseases. Number three, there are things in these fats. You see why this Malaysian palm oil is red? It's because it contains carotenoids. The same kind of things like beta carotene, there's 600 of them, contains that. It contains tocotrienols, which protect the brain. Tocotrienols are so valuable, they even make them as a supplement. And that's in the fat, and it doesn't cause inflammation. And then the other thing is, these fats make the vegetables and fruits more absorbable. I make a glass of juice. This is right from my refrigerator. This is what I made last night for this. I'm going to drink it all day long, and it's just all the red things in my cupboard, beets and carrots and apples. But you know what? They're better absorbed with fat because many of them are carotenoids. So I put a little bit of that red palm oil in there. Man, I will absorb. That's like a vitamin store right there. Nuts. These are great foods. We got to go back to snacking on these foods and stop with the stuff that we've emptied from the supermarkets.
I love the Johnny Bowden 4 food groups. Food you could hunt, fish, gather, or pluck.
It's really so simple. You know, one of my missions for 25 years of doing nutrition education is to get people to understand it's not as complicated as all the nutritionists and dietitians and doctors have made it. They've given us, you know, proportions of carbs and fat and all of that stuff's interesting. All you really got to do is eat real food. And what is real food? Food that if you were a caveman, if it was a few thousand years ago, you could have hunted it, fished it, gathered it, or plucked it. If it came out of the ground, fell off a tree, or you could have in another place hunted or fished it, guess what? It's probably good for you. And every one of these foods, with the exception of the canned black beans, which are very, very minor processing, every one of these foods meets that criteria.
So the movie's available on Amazon. Can we get your book there too?
You can. Thank you for mentioning it. The healthiest foods on earth. Right.
All right. We'll put your information on ours, IndyStyle.tv. Great sermon, sir. Appreciate the expertise.
Thank you.
I told you it was passionate advice. Up next, we talk with Mel from Indiana Originals about an opportunity to help out Hoosier families in need.